Welcome to episode, what is this, 4 now? Yeah, episode 4, Common Sense the Podcast. What's up, fellas?
What's up?
What's up, man?
So for all y'all that don't know, we got babyface Frakes back. If you don't recognize him this week, second time on the show.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, glad to have you on here. Maybe we got video this time,
Yeah,
so
this
everybody
one's
gets to see you now.
Yeah,
so they probably didn't get that joke unless they already know you. I mean, you are kind of famous.
Yeah. If I'm famous, your world is shit. I'm gonna say that. If I'm famous in your
And
world.
then we got my good buddy Miggy over here, Miguel. I told you I was going to say Miggy.
Yeah,
I told you it was going to happen right out the gate. But this week, we're just going to sit down with some good friends of mine. We're just going to talk about cigars, bourbon, and whatever the hell we want to talk about, which is kind of how this started off in the beginning. So I know Miguel brought he's a part of a really cool bourbon group that I like to associate with. It's probably one of my favorites, called The Locals. And that's my favorite because we all break bread together, man. It's kind of like up here. It's just really cool. We meet for lunch every other week or so. During COVID, I mean, that's where some true friendships formed and bonded, sure, because we had lunch together like every week. It was the only thing we could do. You know, we all got together, we were hunting bourbon, doing barrel picks, and we were having lunch together. And man, that's kind of where it was at for a lot of us.
How'd that slow you down going through COVID trying to do barrel picks?
It didn't. It actually accelerated everything.
It's like the only thing you could do.
Crazy how much bourbon accelerated during that time.
Same thing. We saw the same thing with cigars.
Yeah.
People had the time.
Yeah.
And the government was giving them some cash. They're like, what do I do with it?
Time was the key. Everyone had more time. You know, you've definitely seen a swing in it now. You know, and you may have seen it or may not have seen it, but like there is definitely, I've seen a shift in one, how much people invest their time into bourbon in comparison to 2 years ago. I don't know if you've seen the same thing here.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. The whole industry had this terrible trifecta of people having more time, more interest, more dollars, and all of that comes together. And then you hit a couple of hurricanes in 2020 that absolutely obliterated all the fields of tobacco. Yep. And people they pretty much, you could see all the tobacco just completely deplete, and these manufacturers just deer in the headlights, not knowing how they were going to keep up. Yeah. I would imagine whiskey was probably a little bit more prepared for it than we were.
Definitely
I don't think so.
Not, no, because as soon as, like, think about a whiskey, it's the same with like aging, you know, tobacco and stuff like that, and wrappers. Like, if you have a peak in demand and you haven't accounted for that as a business, then you've only got X amount of supply. You can't just age a 10-year wrapper, just like you can't just age a 10-year bourbon overnight, right? So all these bigger distilleries saw massive increase in demand, and then all of a sudden, like, they're like, oh, we've got next to nothing, we've got to try and keep going. I mean, Buffalo Trace, for example, did I think it's a $1.2 billion expansion based on the fact that the last 2 years have gone nuts. You know, so you can't just make this stuff overnight. So yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that was across the board. Yeah. Let's talk about that real quick before we get too into this. So tonight, all the guys on here, well, I mean, except for Miguel, because he'd already had a pretty awesome cigar lit, but we went with these Patoro Brazilian wrappers. When Brandon gets done lighting, I'll let him tell you more, because I don't know more about this. I had to go Patoro again, because he gifted me a cigar when we hung out this weekend that is now definitely probably a top 3 cigar I've ever smoked in my life.
You know what you smoked? It was a Partagas.
Was it a Partagas?
It was a Partagas.
It was a Patoro.
Which one?
It was the label that, like...
Which one?
He smoked a Partagas 150 Tubo A.
It was phenomenal.
He's smoking an A is a size. It's a slender, long cigar that very few manufacturers make. They're very difficult to make. They take a lot of tobacco. They take a lot of time. And for consistency on a cigar that's, 9 inches almost?
Is that what it is?
It's
nine inches.
It was huge. Like, I mean, it's only about, like, I mean, it's a smaller ring gauge. I mean, it's not much different than this. About like this. But it was huge. And, like, I'm a fairly fast smoker. Like, I'm not like Elliot, if anybody knows Elliot in the lounge. Like, I mean, I don't, like, just, like, inhale, like, half a cigar at a time. But, like, I don't consider myself a slow cigar smoker, but the minute that cigar started going, I was like, whoa, I have to slow down and really enjoy this. Like, I was a little disappointed in myself that I chose the smaller one when we were hanging out because, I didn't know how much time we had left that evening, and I didn't know if I'd get to fully enjoy that one. But man, last night with the weather and the new back patio, could not have been a better cigar out there to smoke for that. And we haven't done this yet either. I said everybody else was here, but this week we're trying a little bit different approach because I want to be able to pay attention to a little bit more of you guys on here as well. And me trying to go back and forth and losing conversation with these guys is a struggle right now. Maybe that's just early on. Maybe that gets better down the road. But we got my man Biz on a mic tonight too. What's up, Biz?
You just made a mistake, sir, but that's okay.
That's all right. We've made plenty of mistakes on this show.
That's facts.
That's facts.
I can't deny that.
We just roll with it.
Yes, I'll take care of the comments, the things. If somebody says something interesting on this side of the tracks, you focus on the guests. I'll make sure to keep everybody else linked up to what we got
y'all
going
can
on.
thank Biz and his sidekick Brandon when he's not over here being on the show. Like, Biz is the man behind all this that keeps everything flowing and going. So
no, that's really Brandon, but I just take credit for it.
That's
anyway,
all right.
Keep going.
Hey, keep going. He's a guest right now. Don't
Keep
let
going.
him do all
That's
that.
all biz. It's all biz.
Yeah.
Oh. No, okay, so let's talk a little bit about this cigar, shall we?
Yeah.
You'll smoke it when you're on it. For those of you who are just tuning in, we're actually smoking the Petoro Brazil. We were just talking about holy shit demand starts happening because of 2020, because now these industries are booming. More and more people are getting into it, seeing that it has a great barrier of entry. This is the perfect cigar to illustrate that point. This particular cigar, the company's out of Olten, Switzerland, but they do their production in the Dominican. It uses a very unique, it's called a Cubra wrapper, which is a Cuban-Brazilian hybrid.
It has a very unique taste to it.
It's
never heard
sweet,
of that
but
before.
like
Ever.
It's killer.
it's got some earthy tones to it that I don't think I've ever had in a cigar.
This cigar, I remember smoking the first one, and I sent a message immediately to the group and said, I'm going to blow this son of a bitch up because that's definitely getting picked up on the algorithm. But I'm going to blow this son of a bitch up because I am smoking it way too fast. Right? So,
Yeah, you warning me before this. Don't say trash.
Don't worry.
But still.
but I'm going to blow this bitch up. That's for sure getting us on there. So just for those of you who are watching, if this live stream goes away, it's because Facebook decided that
Yeah,
it was
just
going
start
to.
texting us.
How-
We'll
that was a
figure it
bad
out.
thing.
However, that Brazilian hybrid that's on this, right? It is a very unique palate. It's a very unique tobacco. We actually use it in our house stick. Absolutely love how flavor forward it is. But with all great things, the quantity is limited. So right now there's a massive, massive shortage. And it has to do with a number of different factors. But if anyone smoked the orange band Petoro, called the Serie P, also
That one.
has a Cubra on it. Not quite as aged, not quite as vibrant, not quite as alive. But now they have to figure out, how do we tell the same story with different tobacco? So now you have to reimagine an entire blend of what makes this magic, why is it awesome, and then completely blank slate, go figure out what specific bale of tobacco will step in that place.
Interesting.
Not even just, you can't just say, oh, I want a Nicaraguan wrapper, or I want something that's global. You can't say, I want something from Jalapa. No, it has to be the perfect bale or the perfect source of that tobacco, because I'm sure it's actually the same thing whiskey, right? I mean, different places in the rick house is a different, completely different.
Yeah, and a lot of the
experience.
people started
100%.
sourcing because they couldn't keep up with demand. And then you had some of these massive distiller producers like MGPI, and you have people like Dickel that were like backlogged with like tons of barrels, and people started using that and blending it. And it's like, some of them even got, I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, some of them got a really bad name because like the Dickel stigma, and it was like, oh,
There's
this is Dickel juice, and there's just
yeah,
so many
again,
different things
It's a
like
bad
that.
name from the beginning.
It's like anything, right? When you have a fad in anything, everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon, right? So, you know, there are a few places where you can contract distill or source barrels from, as Garrett mentioned, right? You can go to a major producer like an MGP and buy barrels, but that doesn't mean that they're all going to be great, right? And a lot of people just do batches or blends and stuff like that, and they don't work out as well, and that can tarnish your name. It's like branding, right? I mean, it's all branding. You put out a bad product, right? Because you think you're just going to make a quick meal,
There's no branding on the table today.
That is what our industry saw too. Everyone
it happens everywhere.
Yeah, everyone thought that it was going to be up and to the right forever. So they just started tossing it out there. Take it. And then all of a sudden, now they're seeing the backlash of it. For those who were disciplined and did it right, well, now they're shining.
Well, yeah, and they're the ones that are going to continue being consistent, and they're going to be the brands left over at the end. And it's interesting you're talking about, and you're explaining this cigar, because I smoked the orange label Patoro at F1
He had the
right?
F1.
The F1 morning one?
Yeah.
So now I'm kind of like, I'm smoking a 2018 Fuente, and it's awesome. But now I'm almost feeling disappointed that I'm not smoking this right now, and I will get to it, because I'm now kind of looking at you guys going, you motherfuckers.
It's delicious.
I'm jealous.
So you won't. Well, the good thing is, you can smash it. Yeah, you can smash that.
Yeah. Speaking of smashing, he's got an empty glass. You're almost empty.
Yeah.
Let's. You want to go with the new one you guys just released and get some of that in his cup?
You want me to talk about it?
Tell him about it. I'm gonna pass it over to him and let him get a pour of this, because I know he liked the first one.
I'm glad we're gonna
so much.
I'm glad we're gonna do this first. Well, for one, just for everyone, that was opened on Friday. That was open Friday.
Yeah. And I believe it. If it's like the killer bee.
There's a few people that have tried that so far, like from my bowl. Most of that's been me. Yes, definitely, underlying alcoholic over here, but
Connoisseur.
There we go. So I like that word better.
Yeah.
But I need to finish this real quick, because that is different to this.
And while you're doing that, this is coming from the Blendery up in Oak Point, Texas.
Yes.
And Tim is salt to the earth. This is one of the cooler concepts I've ever run across.
It is super cool. And people that haven't been there, we were trying to get Tim on the show this week, but unfortunately he had another commitment. We were going to bring him on here to talk about this as well. So are we able to drop the little hint of like what you guys are doing now?
For those who are watching.
For those of you that are watching, we'll break a little bit of news here since Brandon gave us the green light. Miguel and his team have done, this is what you guys' second pick now with. They had the Killer Bee that they did in conjunction with some other clubs, and Tim at the Blendery. So Tim has this amazing facility where he gets barrels, and you can get a locker at his place, much like ICC, and you can come out and dabble in blending whiskeys and see what you're good at, what you like. And if you like what you blend, you can blend as many bottles as you want and buy it from them. I mean, assuming however much is in the barrel from what you blended. And it's really, really an awesome, unique experience. Tim is one of the coolest guys, super knowledgeable, super, super friendly, a great, great host. And ICC, I've heard, is working on something they're going to offer up here from the Blendery. That'll be their own very blend for ICC.
I'll say before I kick it over is I'm looking forward to a very long relationship with the Blendery, an industrial cigar company. Thanks to you. Thanks to you, truly.
Honestly, knowing you guys and knowing Tim, and just, that light bulb click moment when you realize, oh shit, the business concepts and the community aspect and the localization of how you have your structure to your business plan, your strategy, and the way that you want your members and how you're kind of leading that just clicked to me. I was like, this is exactly the same, but just in a different industry. And it just made sense that I knew that you guys wanted to expand. I knew there were certain things that you did in the private lounge and stuff like that for your loyal members. And it just made sense to have you guys get together, because there was definitely something that could be kind of, developed there in terms of a relationship. And I'm glad that we got the opportunity to get you.
And that's what I love about this stuff. And that's the kind of stuff you guys have heard me talk about, from finding a lounge, finding a group of people that share common interests with you. And, find a place like ICC, find a place like the Blendery, find a group like the Locals, or
good luck.
Unless you're here. I mean, you find some of those, they're few and far between, but I mean, you see all this energy starts coming from that. And it's like, hey man, what these guys are doing over here really jives with this, and put these two together. And man, you start creating some powerhouses, like stuff starts coming together. And it's just like, you get these amazing cigars, and then well, shit, we paired an amazing bourbon with it. That like the guys that have been curating the humidor at ICC are now going to the blendery and sitting down with Tim, and he's assisting them, and they're curating bourbon that will go well with the cigars in their humidor for their private members that they're going to have up here. I mean, how much better does it get? I mean,
the
it's super
opportunity,
curated.
The opportunity is endless. Like when we were sitting there, and you're a very creative person, right? Because obviously you have your other side of your business, you have this, and you can just see it in your face when your brain is going 1,000,000 miles an hour about this. And there was so many things that we discussed that night that could be not like a 12-month period, but like a 10-year period,
right.
15-year period. Like there's so much opportunity there. And whether it's a special release cigar with specifically a specific blend for that, for regular members or private members or whatever that may be, but there's just so much you can do with it.
And that takes us to what's right in front of us and in our Glen right now. What
exactly?
What is a story behind this bourbon or this whiskey that we have in front of us that I know has a cool story?
I'll go through the story of this because it is an interesting one. So just to kind of piggyback off what Garrett was saying, Tim created this concept of having a spot where it was exclusive and for members and stuff like that, and you'd be able to go in and blend various different mash bills, whether it be a 99% corn or a 36% rye bourbon or a 95% rye whiskey or whatever, and create your own custom bottle, right? Which is pretty unique in itself, right? There aren't many places that offer that. If you go to bigger distilleries, you get things like, oh, this is our hey, just fill your own bottle kind of deal. It's kind of like custom, but it's not really.
Get it engraved with your name on it.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever. And again, it's a great experience, right? If if anyone hasn't gone, you're a great bourbon lover or whatever. It's a great experience overall. With this, that experience is taken to like 10 levels higher, right? So that's the concept of the business. Obviously, having a good relationship with Tim and being personal friends and stuff like that, and he's a pillar in the community from a bourbon standpoint. He offered the opportunity to go and go through some barrels, open them, have some fun right after a delivery, and we did one originally, which was called the Killer Bee, which actually subsequently we ended up submitting into the New York International Spirits Competition in the single barrel category, and I actually took 95 points in gold medal. In that same competition, he got.
That's a hell of a feat. I mean, that's a hell of a feat.
Never done it before, never even thought about it. It was like, hey, what do you think about this? We're like, well, shit, if you think it's going to amount to something, well, not even amount to something, but if you think it's worth it, like, we think it's a good barrel, but like, it's different when you're putting into like a structured competition, right? That wasn't ever our plan. He's like, yeah, I want to do it, right? So he did that and a few other bottles. That was a gold winner. He got multiple other awards, and then he also got Texas Rye Distillery of the Year from that competition. So big thing for him. But yeah, going back to this, so we did that, and then opportunity came up to do another one. So this is unique as you can get it, right? Everyone, if you're into bourbon and stuff like that, things like MGP, everyone's going to know what MGP is. It's a big producer of, mass producer of bourbon. You can contract distill, you can source, blah, blah, blah. Back in 2017, they fucked up. They accidentally filled 50 barrels of their 95.5 rye mash bill, right, which is a straight rye, and a 36% high rye bourbon mash bill, right? So you got a bourbon and a rye, and they accidentally filled 50 barrels. They didn't realize until the 50, and they went, oh shit, well, what have we done? And they were like, well, I don't really know what to do with it. So they let it sit. Then there was a couple of people that were interested, never came to fruition, fell through. They don't know what's in there. They don't know the percentage.
Yeah, and rye is kind of like not everybody's go-to. Like many people are afraid of rye, and like there's so many hidden gems in rye.
There's so much.
Everybody's so scared it's going to be like super spicy and have all the typical rye characteristics that man, like there's so much great rye. And rye, I think rye is gonna be one of those things that like it's not as produced as much. I think there's gonna come a point where like people start figuring out rye, and then they're gonna start wanting to buy all this rye, and they aren't gonna be able to meet the demand. I mean, like, because it's just not produced and farmed as much. Like most of the rye comes from Canada and a few other places, but like I think that's something you will see in the next, I don't know, 5 years. I mean,
yeah,
that
definitely.
like you'll see more rye get heavily allocated because it's just there ain't going to be as much of it.
Well, the benefit to rye is that typically you can drink it younger, right? And it takes on a lot more characteristic. It's not, I wouldn't say less complex, but it's just very different to a bourbon. Bourbon, I mean, you have to kind of give it a bit more time. Rye, you can start bottling it, 4 years, 5 years, and it'll still be very good. Obviously 10 years, 12 years, 13 years is going to be significantly better. But you have the opportunity, and a lot of companies that go and do this contract distilling, in the time frame that they're doing that, they're aging their own rye because they can get it to 4 years, they can push it out, and it's their own product, right? They just obviously need to find the right mash bill and do all that kind of science, which, I'm not privy to. But yeah, so going back to this, 2017, they mistakenly filled those 50 barrels. They have no idea what the blend is. A couple of things fell through. Tim was at that point, close to that point, starting to come up with this concept, right? So who does he turn to? One of the biggest, producers of barrels for contract distilling and sourcing. And he happened to stumble across this when it was, I tried the first sample when it was 3.5 years old. And it's interesting because the craziness of that story, in 2019, a producer came in and said, "We're interested, re-barrel it." And I'm hoping that I'm getting all the full details of this 100% correct. That fell through. They actually put it into brand new Speyside cooperage, which is a very good cooperage, heavy char level 4 barrels. In 2019. So it's been in there for 2 years. Yeah, been in fresh barrel for 2 years, and then re-barreled in 2019. This is 2022. This is 3 years on. So this is 3 years and 5 years and 8 months old, double barreled, completely unknown blend of two various mash bills. And we thought, what better appropriation than Scooby Doo and the mystery mash bill theme for a sticker.
Solid.
But it's not the oldest thing in the world, but it's unique. This is one of 50 barrels ever produced, and that will ever be produced.
And they can't reproduce it.
Yeah, they can't reproduce it.
Because they don't know what's in it.
You tried the other one, right? You tried the Double Jeopardy.
Hands down, the most remarkable aha moment of whiskey in my life.
You should have seen his face when he first sipped it.
It was between the creativity of trying to figure out how we're gonna make all this work together, which already got the wheels going, and then I tried this Double Jeopardy.
I did the same thing because I showed up to a birthday party there. That was my first time actually being at the blendery, and I had the Killer Bee, and
so this was Derek's party.
Yeah, this was Derek and Jason's birthday party. And when I walked in, Tim was like, super cordial, welcome to the place, hey, come in. He's like, matter of fact, before you have anything to drink, come over here because we just brought this out again. And lo and behold, it was Double Jeopardy, which at that point I had not had. And holy smokes, I was like, man, this is what y'all are doing here? I mean, I had the Killer Bee, and I mean, personally, I think the Killer Bee is amazing, but like Double Jeopardy, like that.
Now it's hard to say.
That's like tit and tat. Like, I mean, they're a little different, so it's kind of hard to like put them head to head. But I mean, again, they're blends. Like, and that's kind of the beauty of his concept, man. You can go in there and play around. Like, you think you know a lot about bourbon. I mean, that would be like you guys hosting an event here and being like, "Hey,
blend your own cigar."
Yeah,
go for it.
Yeah, it's
try it. See what happens.
We got Alfonso here, and he's just brought all this stuff. And you guys see if you can just come up with a good enough cigar blend. If you come up with something good enough, he'll sit here and have his guy roll them for you. I mean, like, and you can buy as many of them as you want. Like, but you think you're good and you think like, go ahead, try it. Go at it, big boy.
For those of you who attended the first night at the factory, you'll realize that, yes, of course, it is more difficult than you would expect.
I mean,
it is. I mean, and that was a process that we did, but just the amount of work that it takes in order to get the rollers, get the tobacco that works well together. That's the beauty is.
Well, that's just operations.
He knows his stuff.
That's just operations
Right.
versus like understanding what works well together. What marries? It's like being a chef.
On top of that,
everyone can be a good cook, but like a chef, it's the same type of deal.
It took, when we did that first event, it took Edgar Hoyle 9 months to find 8 different tobaccos that would work together.
Jeez.
9 months to just find the tobacco that would hit the table and be okay.
And he narrowed it down. Like, imagine going to a place where, I mean, I'm sure Tim does that. Like, he doesn't just go and get like all these shitty barrels and good barrels and just say, here's whatever. He gets good barrels that like you can do stuff with. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's, you're narrowed down. I mean, it's not like you're just gonna like walk away with like some shitty bourbon or something like that.
Typically, the ratio swing for single barrels can be anything from like 1 in 5 or 1 in 10.
Yeah.
Right.
What does that mean?
In terms of like how out of 5 barrels that you own, one could be potentially a single barrel.
Gotcha.
Right. So obviously we've gone through the phases of bourbon, right, from the 50s and 60s and stuff, where it's all like low proof for the most part, blah blah blah, and all heavy aged. And then we go through to today's world. In the last few years, it's been single barrels. Like everyone wants to do a single barrel because it's a specific selection that kind of gives character to a group or a store or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you sourcing like a very specific cigar for your customers, for your members, because you know that it's going to fit, for the crowd that you sell to, right?
And that's what the bourbon companies do, like they create a bourbon, because like every one of them is going to taste a little different, but like they have these master blenders that can consistently get you that bottle of Jack Daniels, that bottle of Buffalo Trace, that in general tastes relatively the same. But then you find these like anomalies, which they make single barrels and do that. But like you take these others, can you blend something to taste like, if they gave you 10 barrels at Jack Daniels, can you make it taste like the bottle you grew up drinking? That's
equally as impressive,
that's
right?
Super impressive.
It's super impressive. So whether you grow up or whether you drink it and stuff like that on a regular basis, like for me, and every club does it differently, right? So this is not like a consistent recipe for everyone. It's not like a one size fits all. We look for something that's off profile from, if we're talking something that this is hard
in single barrels.
Yeah, this is hard to say off profile because this is 1 of 50, right? We're trying to get the best barrel that we think is the best barrel, right? So when we picked this, we had eight different barrels lined up with one bogey.
And this is a lesson, I think, a lot of you that are debating what club to be in or what clubs you like, pay close attention to what Miggy's about to say, because I did it again. I told you it was just going to happen.
He's the only person in the U.S. that's ever called me that, although that was a nickname for me as a child.
Yeah, well, it's a good one. It's a good one. I could come up with some really good nicknames for you, though.
I'm sure you could.
You might want to stick with Miggy. Just saying. Ask some of my other friends. You might want to stick with Miggy. But what I was saying was, I know where you're going with this. At least I think I do. And something that I think a lot of people should pay attention to here, because you get involved in all these clubs and then you get this FOMO, like fear of missing out. And like, you got to buy all these picks. You got to buy every single thing. Like what he's about to say and explain is like, to me, it's a crucial thing when I look at like the groups I belong in and what barrel, what bottle am I going to go stand in line for this? Am I going to, work X amount to get this bottle? Am I going to allocate this much of my bourbon budget to buy this bottle? This is very, very key in this, because there are a lot of clubs, and part of the way this works is these liquor stores that they're getting these barrels through and that they have to run these through because of the liquor laws, they have to move X amount of barrels, and like they're not just going to give you the Blantons and the Buffalo Trace stuff. Like you got to move some other product too. Mm-hmm. And like this is key, because like if you feel like you got to buy your bottle, like don't be fooled. Like we can go with cool tater stickers. I mean, there's a cool tater sticker. It's Mario. I mean, like there are people that'll jump in just because you showed them that Mario sticker right then there. Or, hey, you go to the Mystery Mash Bill. I mean, you're really, Scooby-Doo fan, like, go for it. Like, but that shouldn't be your only deciding factor.
That's an expensive sticker if that's the case.
Yeah, but I mean, people, I'm telling you, man,
that one, for example, we did custom
artist.
So, for the most part, I do all of ours, but that one we have a guy that we're good friends with, my buddy Blake, who runs the club with me. He designed that from scratch just because we wanted to have something that was a bit more not unique.
Yeah,
I think we've done some good stickers, but it is. Sometimes it can't. I mean, it's
and I have bottles that fall into that. Like I have bottles that I specifically bought just because I wanted that tater sticker and the wax or the sword or whatever. I mean, I think I set the market on the Zelda bottle.
There's so much as like there's nostalgia ones.
Yeah,
there's I just love that. Yeah. The look is cool. There's just
get it for why you want it, but let's get back to that though real quick. Like explain what you were about to explain to them about like what you guys look for when you're doing a pick to differentiate your picks as a group.
Yeah, so again, it's not a consistent recipe for everyone, but what we do is we're looking for like the standout. And when I say standout, and again, stuff like this, like there is no consistent.
It stands out on its own.
I mean, yeah, it's not like, oh, this is sold and 50,000 people were drinking it on a daily basis or whatever. So it's
go with the Elijah Craig example. Like a bunch of people just did Elijah Craig. Like several groups did Elijah Craig picks.
So when it comes to barrels or brands that are known, right? Mm-hmm. So like your Elijah Craig, your Jack Daniels, all that kind of stuff like that. There's a profile, right, to them. Everyone knows what they taste like.
You can go to the liquor store and buy this bottle, and this is what it's going to taste like in general when you drink it.
Exactly. But when you're doing a single barrel of those types of brands, like what we look for is we look for something that's completely off the normal, right? We don't want, what's the point in a single barrel if it just tastes the same as the shit that you get on the shelf? Just go buy the shit on the shelf, So we look for one, high quality. We have a very high bar. We turn down so much crap. Right, I say crap. We turn down so many offerings.
Yeah, things that don't match. Yeah, that's what you're looking for.
It doesn't match what our standard is or what we feel that the group members deserve and stuff like that. And it's kind of a catch-22 really, because you have, like Garrett mentioned earlier, you have to be able to move product, right, or seen to move product in this world in order to get the best stuff. But we just take a very hard line stance on it and just say, like, we're just not interested in this because one, the market has shifted a little bit, right? People have gone back to work. There's less money. There's less time. Mm-hmm. People are a bit more conscious about what they spend, especially in today's market right now. But like, we just want the best shit. We just want to provide the off-profile, the things that really hit in your face. And again, I think.
But you should know that about your club. It was kind of my point. Like like you guys are going for off-profile. Does not remotely taste like the bottle I could get off the shelf.
Exactly.
And, some clubs want to stick to something like, it's the best I've had of this profile. Like, not saying one is right or wrong. Like, for the record, I'm a part of several clubs. I'm not bashing any one of them. Like, there are a lot of really good clubs in DFW. I mean, there's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of bad ones. All I'm saying is know what the guys that are picking the barrels, what is their motive? What are they going for? What are they shooting for you as a member of their club? What are they trying to pick? When I come to ICC and I walk into the humidor, I know what you guys are setting as the bar of what I'm going in there. I know that I feel like I can walk in there and try something new without even really like asking or like getting a lot of information about it. And I know I'm probably not going to hate it. It might not be my exact cup of tea, but I'm not going to hate it. But I know what you guys as the Frakes put into curating that humidor. And it's the same thing with these bourbon clubs. Know what the guys that are out there picking the barrels and bottles are going for, because then it helps you decide, am I buying this bottle just for nostalgia? Am I buying this bottle because I know it's some super unique? Am I buying it just to support my club? There's a lot of different categories a bottle can fall into, but knowing that about your club, I think is key. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's very, very important.
Yeah, I think for me, and it's funny actually, because my admin partner Blake, he says it really well. I'd rather you say you love it or you hate it. Mm-hmm. If you just tell me it's okay, I'm offended, right? So I don't care if someone says, hey, I don't like it, right? I'd rather someone say that to me than it's okay, right? Because, no one wants to be okay. It's mediocre, right? But the key thing here is, and again, everyone's different. Everyone has different motives. Our motive is we keep it small, right? We try and bring the best to the members, right? We do it, and this is the other thing. We do it completely out of the passion. I mean, it's not like this is not a job. I have a full-time job, right? So does he, and so does all of our moderators. Like, we just do this for fun. Like, this is something that we do because we like doing it, right? There's a passion there that goes beyond just buying and collecting or drinking or whatever, and it's not like everyone's an alcoholic in the bourbon scene. It's like I said, a connoisseur. It's an appreciation of the craft. And I think, didn't mean to kick that. And I think the key thing here is, like, again, for us, it's fun. There's a lot of people that have gotten into bourbon over the last 2 or 3 years. Right?
Yeah.
It's, COVID. Crazy, and again, everyone starts at some place. I mean, shit.
Yeah, we've all been newbies. We've all done all this.
We've been standing in lines. Like, I remember one of the times I was stood in line freaking January, February, and it was like freezing cold. But it's 6 a.m.
Yeah, and you form relationships
to get one bottle.
Yeah,
right. To get
limit
one.
Limit one.
Yeah, but limit one, right? But the important part was, and Garrett mentioned this earlier, was that during that time there were so many guys doing that were either new to it or had been doing it or whatever, and you forged so many relationships. I've got like best friends and stuff that have come from this. My wife even has best friends from friends that I've met through this, that she's become friends with their wives. Like,
I mean, I wouldn't be.
We met through this.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm a customer here and previous to that, but we've connected those two things. But like, our wives are now friends, and like, there's so much that is
all of this started because of what happened during COVID. Like, I would not be sitting here right now with either one of you doing this podcast or any of this had it not been for COVID and me liking bourbon and then deciding like, oh, I have a buddy that's going to this drop. Like, let's go see what this is about. And then I was like, oh, I get to go on an adult Easter egg hunt, treasure hunt, finding bourbons. And oh shit, I can still go do this during COVID. Liquor stores were still open. You could go stand in line with hundreds of people trying to get a bottle, or you could drive all over while everything else is closed. Liquor store's still open. You go hunt all over Texas, Oklahoma, wherever you were willing to drive to find a bottle. Like, that in itself opened up doors to where you met new people, got around new people, found new groups, got apart, got involved, started learning, started educating myself. And, it went from there to, the first group I got in was Someone Say Whiskey. And, learning about them. And, then I find out, like, oh, shit, some of these guys I went to high school with, I did this and that. And then it's like, oh, shit, they got this Frank Sinatra cigar dropping. Oh, let's see what that's about. And then it's like, oh, well, I like cigars, but now I'm sitting around my house and I can, like, smoke cigars on my patio. And, oh, this place ICC's right down the street from my house. Oh, let's go in here. And then I meet people here, and it's like, oh, shit, man. Like, it just starts snowballing. And it's like, you see all these things, and, like, it really has. I mean, like, Miguel and I, that's how we met. Like, the locals having lunch together, every week. And, and we've turned into really great friends. I mean, we hang out with our wives, same thing with us. It's like one of those things that, like, bonded over common interests, whether it be cigars or bourbon. And I encourage people to find things like that because, it opens up doors. Like, you end up, a cigar or a bourbon or both or whatever spirit you like. It's an easy transition to talk about, like, because we don't talk about all the other bullshit in the world, or whether it was COVID at the time and whether people were fighting, agreed, disagreed, whatnot. We didn't talk about that. Like, and to be honest, like, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people find it kind of weird and scary. I know my wife did at times, like, like standing in line, sitting here sharing bottles and stuff in the midst of COVID. We weren't any of us like, oh, I'm going to get COVID. Like, I'm really worried about this right now. It's kind of like, shit, this is the only thing we can do.
And it's funny, it took me 2.5 years to get COVID after COVID started.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, thanks, whiskey. And also, thanks, China, is what Garrett's trying to say.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I was going to say. No, Brandon's trying to get my show kicked off since his show got kicked off.
No, they like China. But the thing is, I think it's a huge testament to community, and the people who are watching either smoke cigars or drink whiskey and know the magic of it. But we all have a responsibility, right? We have a responsibility to introduce these experiences, which seemingly have really tall barriers of entry to get in, but it's just a small hurdle. Everyone can step over and have that experience. And once you have an in-depth conversation with somebody that is true and to the core that you can do over whiskey, over cigar, whatever. I think that's the quickest way to introduce somebody to a completely new life that lays ahead of them.
Yeah. All right, I know he says he's hopping off here, and I don't want to cut you off because I've been meaning to get to this for a minute. Josh says he's hopping off. Josh, if you hopped off already, hopefully you come back and hear this. Josh asked earlier, since we're quote unquote from Josh, his bourbon guys, what would you recommend as 2 or 3 bourbons that won't break the bank that he could easily find at a store? What would you throw out there?
That's easy.
Not knowing what he likes. I mean, I have no idea what Josh likes. I mean, I've hung out with him a couple times up here.
I'll give a few options, 2 or 3. You said 2 or 3. So, not knowing what you like, Josh, and obviously, there being a vast difference in proof levels, right? My brother-in-law's here. He's not the biggest fan of the highest proof levels, right? And obviously, every single bourbon, beginner might not be into that stuff. But honestly,
he probably drinks that Conor McGregor shit, though, doesn't he?
The proper 12.
He brought some of that proper 12 with him from across the pond.
He's an ex-fighter, so he might be partial to that.
Well, shit. Why didn't you tell me that before I started talking shit on it?
If you would see the look on his face right now while you was talking,
He's like, this fucking wanker.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Liam, and you can feel free to shout. But I think he's ex-British champion karate. So both him and my wife ex-British champions. So
say something else, Garrett. I dare you.
Well, I mean, I'm scared to death of Miguel's wife. I mean, I'm sure she would kick my ass in a heartbeat, and I'm sure she's wanted to a couple of times.
I'll line that fight up, no problem. I'll promote that, no problem.
For sure.
Tickets and pay-per-view, $100. We'll just split it.
Yeah.
All right, going back to Josh's question. So, honestly, sorry, Dave.
Oh, you know where the tracks are. That's different than us.
So, I'm going to recommend this. If you can get it at any store, anytime. You're never going to run out of this. But Wild Turkey 101 is a staple.
I second that.
It's a staple.
Yeah.
Was it now $20, $22?
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
You can't go wrong with that. I mean, again, if we're talking,
will you type these in the comments so I can go back and check this out? Yeah, my man.
I'm on it right now.
We can get you a list.
Right. So that would be one. That's again in that $20-$25 range. Again, if you like rye or you want to explore rye, the Wild Turkey 101 rye is also fantastic.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that either.
I've heard crazy stories about that, like blinding and coming in second in comparison. Like literally, the number 1 was the Van Winkle Family Reserve rye, which is a 13-year, and number 2 was like Wild Turkey 101. I've heard some crazy stories about it.
Yeah,
great rye as well. So if you want to try that or whatever, get that. If you want to go a little bit more on the price range, again, it's still in the Wild Turkey family. Again,
Russell's.
Wild Turkey. You can't go wrong with the products. Russell's Reserve, 10-year bourbon, right? What we're talking, like 35, 30.
I think it's around $40 now.
Yeah,
it's
depending
about $40.
On the state, around that kind of price range. Honestly, like outside of that, if you wanted to go like super cheap, like Evan Williams Bottled and Bond, it's like $14. What? 100 proof.
Old Granddad.
Old Granddad 114. I'm not the biggest. I'm not the biggest fan of Old Granddad 114.
You were going to go mellow corn instead, weren't you?
I mean, that's also a potential option, depending on what you want to drink is lighter fluid. But it's definitely an interesting one. I mean, it's palatable, but it's like, again, it's cheap. If you want like a $10 to $15 whiskey, grab that. I'm just not a big fan of Old Granddad.
Yeah.
Like the profile.
I'm not a huge fan. I like it for old fashions, but that's.
That's also a good option. There's actually a random rye that I got. It was actually Liquor King. Bradley at Liquor King actually was like, "Hey, try this." It was called Roulette. It looked like the cheapest, shittiest bottle of rye in the world, but it was actually a 4 or 5 year MGP at 100 proof, so bottled and bond.
Yeah,
it was $23. And it was like perfect for making like
Bradley.
He gets about $20.
Bradley's the brains behind that operation over there. Like he knows exactly what he's doing over there.
He's one of the smartest whiskey dudes I've ever.
Bradley's solid.
But yeah, they would be my options. Like if you're looking for a very cheap option, that Evan Williams Bottled and Bond, again talking $12 to $15.
Yeah.
Right. Easily killable. Doesn't break the bank. You're not going to care about it. You can get a handle for like $23.
Yeah, and I would say any Buffalo Trace pick, single barrel, like just even regular Buffalo Trace.
We were talking shelfers.
Yeah,
here.
I know, but I mean, like, if you go any type of single barrel you ever see, like, just grab it. You're not going to be disappointed in that. Like,
Buffalo Trace or Eagle Rare.
Yeah.
If you can get either of those, if you can find those, right, if you just randomly
that's probably the easier to find out of that lineup.
$25 to $35, depending on where you're at. But, like, I drink those a crap ton. I mean, I opened up a handle of Buffalo Trace store pick just before he arrived, and he's almost killed the goddamn thing.
And I'm a big fan of I'm a big fan of the Knob Creeks too. Like, that's something else that I will throw out there. Any one of those, and Knob Creek has different price points for what you want. I mean, whether you want something in the $40 range all the way up to their, you know, they've got their 10-year, 12-year, 15-year.
You can,
they're harder to find, but I mean, like, you do find Knob Creek on the shelf pretty easily.
If you find the Knob Creek 12-year anywhere between $65 and $75 or even $80, buy it. It's the best one. Like, I'm not a big beam person, right, profile wise. You know, I don't like Booker's, right? I don't like that kind of hot peanut kind of profile in my bourbon at all. The Knob Creek 12 is fantastic, and if you're lucky enough to come across any of the older, like, 15-year Knob Creek bourbon picks, like, buy them. Buy every single one. Don't care how many are on the shelf, just bloody buy them.
Yeah, and if you have trouble getting rid of them or anything, you can hit up Miguel or myself. We'll help you move those. Yeah, like,
I will buy them all.
So pulling it back to kind of the common sense theme to the show, what are some things that novices need to know? What are some things from the whiskey world that you wish you would have known? You wish somebody would have told you.
Too.
So I think my outlook and your outlook is going to be different, because I think
it will.
I took a different outlook fairly early on, and we've talked about this personally.
Yeah, for sure. You go ahead, start it off.
But it's don't get wrapped in bullshit.
Which is kind of what we were getting to earlier.
Don't go chasing everything possible. Like, there's the magpie and the shiny tinfoil, right? That naturally happens with everyone in anything.
Yeah.
But, like,
and we both did that, but we both did that in completely different ways.
Very different ways.
And when he says that, the way we did this different ways, at least in my opinion, and we have talked about this, so I don't think if I get too far off here, just, you know, slap me, hit me, whatever. Send Liam to kick my ass since he's already, like, waiting for me in the parking lot.
He's going to roundhouse your ass.
You see, I looked over there.
I know, man. I'm getting like mad dog now. I'm getting kind of intimidated on my own show.
He was all smiley before you started talking shit.
No, in all seriousness, no, like, if you look at my collection of bourbon, I mean, I have a pretty extensive collection. I have some stuff that's hard to get. I have a shit ton of club picks. I went overboard in club picks because I didn't know what I was doing, and I was just like, oh, I'm going to buy two. If I don't like it, I'll sell one. Well, I don't take the time to do that. Like, I should. I need to. Like, but I don't do that. Like, where I got was I started chasing craft distillers. Like, I wanted to find something unique. So, like, I would go see people like Bradley. I really got involved with my buddy at Spirits of French Lick, Alan Bishop, who hopefully we will have on the show soon. He's bringing back grains. He's bringing back family old recipes. He's like the first legal distiller in his family, you know, of a long generation of distillers. And to me, he's doing really unique, amazing stuff. So I wanted to find the things that, like, other people weren't trying, that, like, if you looked hard enough, you could find it. Was it breaking the bank? No. And I wanted to be like, hey, man, try this. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you think about this? And then, like, blow somebody's mind with it. Like, I did that, like, personally. I really like Leopold Brothers. He does some amazing stuff with rye. And it's funny, some of my big rye guys absolutely hate it. And then there's other people that aren't big rye guys, and I give it to them, and they're like, this is absolutely amazing. But it opens up doors. Whereas I feel like Miguel, he did the same things to an extent, but then, like, he narrowed down real quickly, like, I'm just gonna, like, move things to, like, be able to get the things that I really want, or the things that are put myself in a position to get the more allocated, the older stuff. Like, whereas I'm transitioning more to that now, you know, 3-4 years into bourbon collecting now, whereas, like, I'm moving some of these picks that people still want, whether for nostalgia or they really like the picks, whatever. And I've been on a dusty kick where I've met some people where I'm able to buy older bourbons, and to me, I would rather sell 4 or 5 bottles and buy 1 bottle of really old bourbon. I mean, like, to me, you can't, like, they're never going to get back to that. I mean, I hope they do at some point. Like, I hope they can create like bourbons that are as good as these old days at some point down the road. And I'm sure they will, but like, I've even gotten down.
Is that just time or is that ingredients?
I don't think it's ever going to happen. There's a couple of theories to this, and we can get back to that. Let's come back to that.
Okay. We could
because
go.
I have a theory on that.
Okay, and we could go a mile down that road. But you know, like, I'll chase some of these like older dusties now and do that. But like, bourbon led me down a journey where like I started off in bourbon. I couldn't drink tequila unless it was a margarita. I mean, I would turn into Conor McGregor, and he's looking at me wrong, you're looking at me wrong in the bar.
And now you have some very nice tequilas.
Yeah, and now I've gotten to where I love sipping tequila, and like I really like tequila. I've drank more tequila over the last 6 months than I have anything else. But I also, as your palate grows and you taste things just like cigars as well, and you get used to these things and your palate starts changing, be open-minded, try other things, and let some of your friends, as you meet these people and stuff, don't be afraid just because you didn't like something in high school or college or whatever you were drinking, because you were shooting this shit, you weren't trying to enjoy it, you were trying to get drunk.
Yep.
And you know what? There's some things you'll be scarred for. You still won't go back to. Like, don't put Rumple Mints or Tawaka in front of me. I'm not drinking that shit. Or Aftershock or any of that shit that
Absinthe.
I got. Or Goldschlager. I mean, I will still tear people up on Jaeger, but like that's a whole nother story. But I went down this other road too, where I started trying a lot of different things. Like, I've got some cognacs, some Armagnacs, you know, and I went down and I got some old barrel-aged rums that, you know, like, when you start learning more about how spirits are distilled and realizes what makes a spirit differently, because when you start looking at it, a lot of it's the same basic ingredients. It's how it's distilled, how long it's distilled, vodka. They basically can take anything and make it into vodka, because basically you're turning the still all the way up. The definition of vodka is a clear, tasteless, and odorless spirit. So like, I mean, really it could be, damn near
super
anything.
easy to produce.
Yeah, like they max out the still. Like, I mean, like there are literally people that could like literally take shit and make it into vodka. And like really the only thing that's different with a lot of it is what it's cut with. You know, like what water is it cut with?
And how it's filtered.
So is Russian water worth $300 more to you in a bottle than Tito's for $29.99? You know, like, I don't know. I'm not saying it's the same as McCormick's, you know, like you're not going to just want to grab a bottle of McCormick's. True. It does taste different. But when you start learning these things as you go in this knowledge, and I would encourage people to learn more before just diving in, you know, explore and say anything. Like, don't go like full FOMO and just buy all this shit. Like, I mean, I did it.
I think the thing here is that it's not fucking cheap.
No, it's not.
Right?
It's not cheap hobby.
Just like cigars, right? It's a hobby and you want to enjoy it, but there's a lot of people that have like limitations financially, whatever, and you can tell who has more money between me and him based on his purchase history versus mine.
I don't have kids.
He doesn't have kids. I do. So, you know, that's a big factor. If you don't have kids, then you're free to do whatever the fuck you want.
Chase.
Go chase ahead. But yeah, I mean, there's the key message here is like, there's a lot of people that do have like magpie syndrome, right? Where it's go and chase the shiny shit. And I did that, but just not at the level that he did that, right? And I was never really the guy that wanted to go after like specific stickers and, you know, just for those that aren't in the, you know, bourbon scene or whatever, a tater, when he says tater, it's basically the sticker design, you know, how they dress up the bottle, right, to make it.
It could be wax. It could be wax. It
could be sticker.
Whatever.
There's tons of different ways in which you can do it. But you know, I was just never the guy that went and chased that aspect. I always chased the quality of the single barrel or the pick or the blend or whatever it may be. And that's really kind of why we do the things that we do in the locals, is that we don't really tend to chase like the crazy stuff. Nowadays, like you do have to take your bottle of it and kind of get people, you know, hyped up about it, or like crave it or get the FOMO aspect or whatever.
Yeah, but they have to trust you at the end, right?
But
I mean, that's
the key point. Yeah, is
that
trust
is the biggest thing for me. Biz, rock and roll, brother.
So let's do some education real quick, fellas.
Go for it.
My man Wesley wants to know, because you see bourbon whiskey on the bottle, but it's a bourbon or is it a whiskey? Like, Wesley wants to know, what is the difference?
Okay, good question.
Yeah,
very
solid.
good question actually. So
I've been confused by this myself. So.
okay, so and again, I'm not an expert. I'm not the guy that like creates all of this stuff, right? So I'm just a humble,
This
passionate
is just
individual.
by definition,
right?
though.
So don't take this as absolute
Yeah.
gospel. I'm going to test. You're testing my knowledge right now. I mean, this is the thing, right? So a bourbon is an American product, right? Produced and
Has to be made in America.
So it has to be made in America. So bourbon is actually the highest regulated whiskey in any category of whiskey in the world.
So it is technically whiskey, but to meet the definition of being able
bourbon.
to call itself a bourbon is what he's about to explain.
Yeah,
Because
so-
you can have whiskey from all different countries. Anybody can make whiskey.
Yeah.
There is no super stipulation on making whiskey.
Correct.
That's why you have light whiskeys, Irish whiskeys, all sorts of things. But when you see the label bourbon,
So basically, bourbon, for one, has to be produced in the US, right? If there's a bottle somewhere that's produced anywhere outside of the US, it's not a bourbon, and if it says bourbon. It has to be at least 51% corn in the mash bill. It has to be the proof entry into the barrel is no more than 125, I believe.
I think it's 125.
125 proof. Going into the barrel, right? So the white dog, the mash dog in the mash bill, the white dog that they produce from the mash bill, blah, 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 has to be barreled at 125 or below. They have to be put into brand new American oak charred barrels, right? So those are the main aspect. I think there's like one more. For some reason, I just can't remember it. Anything outside of that, when you're talking about a
It has
Is
to
it
be aged
time
for 4
for-
years.
Oh,
And
4
then
years.
4
Sorry,
years.
that's
It
right,
has to be
4
in there
years.
for 4 years.
Why did I forget that? But yeah, 4 years is the minimum age statement that you can have for a bourbon. So you have the straight bourbon aspect, and then you have the whiskey aspect. So anything deviating from that is generally called a whiskey.
Okay.
So I hope that answers the question. I would Google it. There's a lot of different things, but like I said, it is the most regulated product in the whiskey category.
Yeah, and then you get to like
in the
bottle
world.
and bond. That's the government
that's-
certifying, and that really goes back to prohibition and them just trying to make
Well, that
sure
actually
that
goes back to Colonel E.H. Taylor.
yeah, and like them wanting to make sure you knew exactly what was in your whiskey
Yeah,
or
so
bourbon.
you were wondering what that is, because I could see it on your face, but basically what Colonel E.H. Taylor did was, back in the day, like, the 1800s, there was a lot, just like everything else, there was a lot of scamming going on and, profiteering on fake products and stuff like that. And there was a lot of people that actually died, from consumption of product that was faked. It was filled with, crap.
I mean, people used to spit chaw into it to
Yeah,
make
like
the
just
barrel whiskey turn colors. even though it was,
crazy,
like, light
crazy
whiskey.
stuff, like medieval time of stuff, And basically, he campaigned to get for the Bottled and Bond Act, which means that any bourbon that was produced and aged, would be under government supervision
In a
it
bonded
was
Had a
warehouse.
single season.
in a single warehouse,
In a single
right?
season.
In a single
produced.
season, so it would basically give the safe stamp of approval.
Government
public.
still, like tax still, like going across here, like
so that you
what
know
you're-
that you're purchasing this bottle, it's been produced in a safe manner and it is safe to consume, versus what was going on in the streets where people were dying from poisoning of various different sorts. And I mean, that brand, that process has stayed true to today, right? There are certain distilleries that do bottled and bond, and it's under same rules and regulations and stuff like that. It just has a very different meaning to now in comparison to, you're not going to die if this isn't bottled and bond, right? So it's there's, again, like anything, there's a vast history behind this stuff, and for me, I'm passionate about it. I love doing this stuff, but like when you actually go back and look at the historic facts, it's super interesting.
That was a question, because we can tie the history of cigars Or we can tie that all the way back to the Taino Indians, Christopher Columbus and the whole process of coming over and how that kind of exploded. What is the creation story of whiskey?
I mean, you can even do that with whiskey too. Like, I mean, a lot of people think like the Boston Tea Party was just about tea. Like, yeah, you like this? I saved this just for you. Yeah, like, I mean, literally, like, England started doing some tactical stuff to, like, mess with America because they were pissed off and angry. Like, they started altering trade routes and stuff and, like, putting huge taxes on, like, molasses, sugar cane, stuff like that, because that's what these early settlers that came over, they brought their pot stills from Europe over, and they're trying to make spirits out of what they get. Well, what was flowing easily out of these ports and stuff? Sugar cane, molasses, and people were making rum. Some of the, like, I mean, you can go back all the way. I mean, alcohol and spirits goes back like to the beginning of history when, like, I mean, like, you go all the way back through all the civilizations. There's some form of it, whether it was an Armagnac, a wine, a whatever, but a big part of that was like England was diverting and like putting taxes and like banning, these countries that they had stronger alliances with. They were banning them from these shipments and blockading it from the U.S. because they're like, you Southerners want to get drunk. Oh, bye-bye. Here's our supplies. Like, they didn't have that readily available here in the U.S. from what they had like done. Then you see they start adapting to corn. Like, what did they did have? They did have corn. So then you see all this corn whiskey and all that stuff start to come about. Like,
did whiskey emanate in Scotland?
I think.
Did it start with Scotch whiskey?
You know what? That's a very good question.
I'm curious because if they got, I
don't know the answer. Honestly,
honestly,
I think that it goes back so far. I don't think there's enough data or discovery to say when something. I saw an article about like the oldest wine ever discovered, and that it was like crazy old, like 2,000 years old or something like that. I mean, I don't think, for example, your question earlier, like for bourbon, there's some controversy there, right? It's just like if
Elijah Craig saying, I'm the
father of bourbon because
father.
I was the first one that charred the barrels, right, in 1776, and it's the same in the automobile world, right? If you look at cars, who was it? The guy that created Mercedes? I can't remember. I can't remember any of those names. It was the guy that created Mercedes. It was the guy that created Volkswagen, right? Those early pioneers, essentially. And there was another guy in Italy as well, and they were basically doing different things at the same time, but basically came up with the same concept. Again, controversy because there isn't really true documentation or proof to say
who
this,
had
this,
that
and this.
first one.
Now, obviously, Heaven Hill, for example, who own Elijah Craig, their whole thing is they have the 1776 embossed on the glass, and they call it the father of bourbon, right? But what's 100% true?
This is one I'd love to have Randy Sullivan on here.
idea.
He's like a historian on this shit and like really knows.
So isn't like Kentucky known for bourbon and Tennessee for whiskey?
That is
the bigger producers.
That is the
I mean, but really, you look at if you look at maps though, and like see how we colonized the United States, it's really hard to say because we really came into the New England area. They were making spirits there. Then the river boats. Then you start moving spirits up and down the river. Kentucky's going to lay claim because they're the first ones to really build big distilleries, but Pennsylvania did, Indiana did, Ohio did.
Well, Pennsylvania
Louisiana
was a big producer back in the day, in the 50s and the 40s, like 30s, 40s,
George
50s.
Washington had a major distillery when he, before he was president.
Y'all knew he was a hustler off top.
Dude, there's a lot of big figures in bourbon. There's a lot of big figures in bourbon brands today, right? I mentioned Colonel E.H. Taylor. He wasn't just called the Colonel, right? He was an actual Colonel, right? Elmer T. Lee, Colonel Blanton's. Like, these were all military or politician figures, of the time.
Deep ties.
So
you think about how many soldiers had to take a shot of their whiskey before they got their legs sawed off.
Or like,
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there had to have been some sort of like
it's
medicinal.
whiskey. What if it was like
if you go to Buffalo,
170 proof vodka? I mean, like,
if you go to Buffalo Trace or in bigger distilleries and stuff like that, especially like, for example, because there's so much heritage in terms of, George T. Stagg owned the distillery, then it was taken over, and then this and this and this. It was like stories about Colonel Blannon's, right? The reason why, and we have a bottle here, and we'll pull that out in a minute, but the reason why the single barrel came about was because he would go to the rick house, right? His property was on the land, right? So it was a short walk or whatever. If you're rolling a barrel, I mean, it's a hell of a longer walk. But he would go to the rick house and go and taste barrels and go, this one's great, and then get the staff to roll it up to the property for a party.
Whoa.
And they came up with the concept of the single barrel, right? Because he was going to select, he didn't have time to do all this other crap, right? But he would just go, all right, this one, great, roll it up, and then
give these all myself.
His socialite party and stuff like that is, political parties or whatever it is, rich people do, in those times. But you've seen movies, it's a big soiree, and there's a freaking barrel there. But that was the whole concept of it, right? And they put that to market, and they created the first single barrel, right? But yeah,
go ahead.
There's even an interesting one. I still haven't found any more research on this. I need to talk to Alan about this more. So I mentioned Leopold Brothers out of Colorado doing super unique thing. This guy just spent, he's got stuff, his bottles are super expensive. They start around $150, $200 to buy his 4-chamber rye. And he's got a 4-chambered still that, for whatever reason, that used to be really popular and prominent. You find before the wars, you could find 4-chamber stills. But for whatever reason, however they were constructed, they tore them down and used them in wartime to produce, fuel and other things. And for whatever reason, once the war was over, they didn't build back these 4-chamber stills, these 4-chamber pot stills. They built back just common stills and stuff like that, and the pot stills. For whatever reason, they pretty much disappeared. So Leopold Brothers spent, I'm sure a couple $1 million having one of the most famous copperages build them from old documents. They recreated a 4-chamber still, and it's producing some of the most unique ryes and bourbons you've ever had. You're either gonna hate it or love it. Don't get me wrong. I would maybe try to find somebody that has some that you could try, because you're going to hate it or love it, but it's not like anything you've ever tasted. But that was a completely different thing. And I don't know why they just disappeared. I don't think anybody really does, but they melted all these down during the war and used them for wartime efforts, and that went away.
Interesting.
Yeah,
but there's so much history.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you start digging into this stuff, you're gonna find out all kinds of crazy stuff.
Well, we look
cigars,
at it, and how that ties in.
Bringing in that antique Smithsonian cigar filler.
It's out there right now.
Out there, I was mind blown because I hadn't seen something like that since I was 13, 14. When I lived in Connecticut, I worked on a farm. And that's it's amazing I can even smoke tobacco or anything. I couldn't eat peppers for a long time after picking peppers for multiple seasons. But picking tobacco is a disgusting job. It is truly
sappy,
just dirty. There's no getting it off of you. It's dirty, hard work. I would almost rather lay irrigation piping in a farm than pick tobacco again. But he had, I'm not saying it's the same, but I'm saying a very similar contraption as that I was just it wasn't the same, but it was very similar. I was God, I wonder how old that really was, because the old man would literally go out there and just take it, and he'd roll his own little stogie cigar when he wanted to out of the barns and stuff like that. And it's just amazing to full circle to see that now.
Well, and how it all brings it together. We were talking about trade routes, right?
Yeah.
Well, we all love, I think, we love the concept of barrel aging. We love what that does, the way the tobacco, the way the whiskey works together, the way that the porous tobacco brings in the flavor. Well, it was because of the whiskey trade and the bootleggers that were running across Oklahoma that even began in the first place.
Yeah.
Because guys about, I think it was 1860s, whenever it was, they introduced or started trading barrels of whiskey with the Choctaw Indians just up the road from us, and they started barrel aging tobacco. There's one, the Terra Nova, that we still have, uses the same type of Arabique barrel aging technique.
I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that.
That company's 200 years old.
Wow.
And it's unique. It's a German-owned company that is, I think, 205 years old now, but it's a process that was created by the Choctaw Indians in the 1860s, somewhere there and about. But it was because of whiskey making its way across the United States and trading with the Indian reservations that was even
crazy.
become a
And
possibility.
that's literally like 2.5 hours from here.
Yeah,
Like,
I suppose
it's like,
technically we're still in Choctaw Indian land, right? If you go north 40 minutes, we're in Choctaw land.
Technically, yeah.
Right? It's very unique where we're sitting in a place that's
All right,
important.
well, I feel like this is a good point to bring this up because we haven't hit this yet, and I've got a segment that we have to drop on you guys before we call it an evening here in a few minutes. But I think a barrel was delivered today, and I think we're going to be barrel aging a cigar here shortly.
I think you're right.
It's technically half delivered because it's still sitting in the back of my truck.
It is, yes, it is on property.
We're gonna pull it out.
So what are we
Bring it in.
going to put in this barrel, and what barrel are we using here, fellas?
Right. So I'll answer the barrel question because I think you may have figured it out. Or
I've got a couple.
You've got a couple.
All right,
Okay.
So with possibilities here, you guys are getting inside early information of something
this
that will
is
be
very
released
inside.
later on.
This process is going to take 3 to 5 months, I would say, in total. But we are going to use the barrel for this, the mystery mash bill, the story that I said earlier about the crazy mistakenly filled barrels and then redouble barreled and so forth and so on. So we are going to use this barrel. I think it brings a super unique profile, and it's just cool to have something that's one of 50 and then do something even more crazy and unique. And I know that these guys at ICC, the Frakes, want to experiment and push the boundaries of innovation, should I say. So what have you been?
So there are a
Coming up
couple,
with
and it's unique that you say that because we do have access to some unique tobacco. We have access to some cigars that have not been produced, and some that are very old. So there are a couple of directions, and thank you for bringing that, so I can taste it and be a part of it. But from two of our favorite, up on the top tier producers, Patoro, one of which we're smoking now, they have a beautiful cigar that uses a Cameroon wrapper. Cameroon wrapper is what you just smoked.
Yeah.
And what you smoked yesterday was a Cameroon wrapper.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, it's got this little citrus, a little bite to it, but it's airy, it's aromatic, it's a porous tobacco.
And yet it still has some of these really good earth tones, which I'm not a big earth tone person, but it still has.
I mean,
like
this is starting to be the one of the best brand cigars that
phenomenal.
You can get.
You're exactly
I just
right.
wanted to put that point. That is,
it's right in line with who we want to be, right? They want to push out the best that they can push out. And the company's been in business since 2001, and they only have 5 blends. So they haven't fallen into the trap of let's have 180 different blends. Let's, make all the same thing 180 times. 5 distinctly different blends. They have one that they're toying with. This one may or may not be a house project that we've been working on for a couple of years. But that is one potential option. The other one is on your point, is an old Dusty. That's from Crux Cigars. And we talk about
Tell me
unique.
more.
So this particular cigar
I just pulled this Dusty.
Right. Well, and it's so funny
table.
because the creators of this are just all about Blanton's, but they have a cigar that uses a wrapper called engañoso.
Okay.
Which translates to tricky, because where it's at is a very tricky place for them to actually farm, where it actually sits in this real weird valley.
In terms of the growth, or in
Yeah.
terms of just the sustainability of it,
Well, actually, just the technicality of farming in a washout valley. So there's a ton of loss because where those volcanoes all come in, there are 3 major volcanoes in growing area in Nicaragua, but where 2 of them come in, they create this valley. And there's a ton of runoff. And when there's a lot of runoff, it's pulling everything from on top down into the soil. So the soil is very dark.
Dense.
It's super dense, right? But
I can
on
imagine
paper,
very loose and stuff like that as well from all the washout and everything.
you would think so, but it packs it down. I mean, that soil is as dark as this microphone.
Jeez.
And usually that means something that's very intense, but the tricky side of it is on paper, this should kick your ass. In reality, this is a beautiful, absolutely sensational wrapper, and they are the only manufacturers that have purchased up all
Brandon
Ingenioso.
just turned this into a late night talk show with his explanation.
I'm telling you. So either way, I think we're going to have something, and I may just grab some samples for both so we can try it and try those together.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds phenomenal.
But both of those, I think, will be top-end producers. Both tobaccos will be, you have something that's unique that would match that barrel it's going to live in. But like you said, Miguel, and that's what I appreciate.
You can't go wrong with either one of those.
No. I'm excited either way.
Oh, 100%.
It's just going to go back to what I said earlier.
Yeah.
What's the fucking best?
What's the best?
What is the best?
Yeah.
And the way that,
the
and a
experts
huge
here to like nail that down. Like, I mean,
but the kudos
and
goes
no
out to
time
Miguel.
frame on it. Like, that's what I think is beautiful about this. There's no rush to put any of this out. There's no urgency. There's no, it has to be this. Like, this could get scrapped and go back to this drawing board. And like, neither of you are going to put out something that you don't feel like is the best.
And I think that's what we talked about
that's
originally,
what's
right?
so beautiful about this.
We don't want blind chasers.
No.
Yeah.
And we talked about this originally. We said, I don't give a shit about timeline. I just care about quality.
Yeah.
I want you guys to take this to the limits that you think that you can take it to. There's no, hey, let's get this ready in 90 days or in 120 days. It's, what do you think is best?
When it's ready, it's ready.
When it's ready, it's ready. And that's the point. Again, quality over quantity. I think we have the same kind of mindset when it comes to that kind of stuff, and I'm excited to see what
that's what's
physically
beautiful
turns
about that.
into.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, I can tell you from firsthand experience. Like I said, I want to go to Vegas with the Frakes when they go to the cigar deal.
You don't want to do that.
I'm questioning that. That's what I was about to say. I did do the sit-in with you guys when you guys bring back like hundreds, and guys, I'm not exaggerating, like hundreds of cigars, and they've already narrowed it down in their mind to probably, I'm gonna guess around 10 or 12, maybe, probably realistically only 6. And we sit in this very same room you guys are looking at right now with a panel, and we pass cigars around to you've had enough to like taste it, really give your opinion, and then it goes up for a vote. And then it goes through all these elimination rounds, because the reality is the humidor already is so amazing and curated so perfectly. For something to be able to occupy shelf space in here, it really has to be on the next level.
No, it does.
So if the Frakes are going to put their name on it or say, this is coming in here, I can guarantee you, it may not be your cup of tea, but it's not going to suck. Like, period.
No.
And
No.
At first, I said I hadn't really smoked a lot of shitty cigars. Holy shit. Even with like, and I know they threw some of those in there just to fuck with people and see what certain members said. Yeah. Just to see what people said, you know, like,
there are
and
bad
what
cigars out there.
Like, yeah, I didn't think there was like, I mean, I knew there were, but like, I just personally had not smoked really shitty cigars. And I can remember there were about 4 that I was like,
they'll ruin
man,
your day.
This is top not, no, actually opposite. There were about 4 that I was like, something out of these 4 is going to make it in here. And I wasn't far off. Like, yeah, it was the one that's coming in Friday night, the Italian one, like
Toscano.
The Toscano, that was amazing. Like that hit off on everybody.
That's the only one that made it.
That's the one that like really stood out. There was 1 or 2 others that I was like, I can see this being in here, but you then have to do, which I can't imagine how hard it is for them, say, is it better than what we already have? And some of them are so close, that's a touchy call. Like, is it better than what we have? And why would I add this to the mix if it's not bringing in something better or different? Same kind of thing we talked about with the bourbons and the clubs. And I respect the hell out of them after doing that. But I mean, like, holy shit, man. Like, I didn't know if I was going to be able to smoke a cigar for like a month after that.
Smoked 78 blends.
We smoked
How
like
many was it?
78.
78 blends.
You told
in like
me, and I was like,
3-hour period.
I'm a cigar guy.
Yeah.
But there is no fucking way.
And they do that for 3 days in Vegas, man. And I was like, we sit here and
It
pass
will
around.
change your life.
I bet
I've
it
been
will.
3 times.
Yeah.
And I came back an inch shorter each time.
Biz just
saying.
signed me back up again. I'm back in on this. If Dave
I'm
and the
gonna go grab
Frakes boys will let me.
But I will say this: we had that issue earlier today when you and I were in the humidor walking around aimlessly. It wasn't because there was nothing good. We absolutely could not figure out what to grab to smoke.
No, we literally said that. Like, I mean, it's like when I'm standing in front of my bar, like, and I'm like, what bottle do I want to drink tonight? Like, not trying to sound arrogant or anything, but I mean, like, I have over 100 bottles open. I mean, I entertain a lot, and like,
Shit looks like Willy Wonka.
I mean, it's like same thing in the humidor though. I walk in, I'm like, all right, nothing sucks. What do I want to smoke, and what are we going to talk about tonight on the show? And it's like, all right, you know, and I treat it kind of like I do my spirits too. What mood am I in?
Yeah.
You know, like, am I in a mood where I need something to lift me up and kind of like, all right, let's get this going, or am I in a like, hey, let's sit back and let's like, you know, like chill, you know.
But what
like,
I've learned though, just like I'm noticing with bourbon and collections and going through the process from beginning to end and selecting cigars to sell, everything you get serves a certain purpose at a certain time to a certain person.
For sure. And in your taste buds and stuff, like I kind of talked about going down different lanes with spirits, happens with cigars too. What I started out smoking is not stuff I really smoke today. I have found stuff that is so much better and that I really, truly enjoy. There's a lot of stuff getting ready to come in this fall that if you guys don't come up here, I recommend you come up here and buy some sticks and see what you can find and talk to the people that work here. There is nobody that's not super knowledgeable about what they're doing here, and that's kind of where I'm gonna bust your balls again, Nate, because Nate told me, I was like, man, are you in here moving stuff around again just to like make me like really hunt for stuff? And he's like, well, you need to ask an employee about what was moved and what's new in here and like let them do it. That's what they're paid to do. And lo and behold, I asked 2 individuals. One may or may not have been the manager. I'm like, so what's new in here? What got moved around? Where's stuff out? What should I smoke today? And they were like, and they all looked at Nate, and I was like, yeah, buddy, that's what just happened.
He
That
was
just
moving it at that moment.
backfired on you real quick, like. But yeah, I mean, you can do that here in the lounge. Like, I mean, it happens. Like, you walk in and it's like, what am I in the mood for today? Or what, you know, and honestly, that's just honest discussion you should have. Like, talk to the experts, talk to the people that are here. They're here to help you. Tell them, like, I had a shitty day. You know, I went and ate Chinese food for lunch and, you know, I'm having a steak for dinner. Okay. I guarantee you, Brandon right now could be like, try one of these 3
Captain
cigars.
Maduro
in here.
number 6. Yep.
Or
I got you.
Easily.
I just had a
Easily.
cappuccino. I've had a really good day, and I just want to sit here and unwind and think about the great day I had. Brandon would say,
German
you should
engineer.
try.
Round site. Yep, I got you.
I mean, see, I mean, like, that's how this happens. And like, this goes across so many platforms, like whether you're talking about your bourbon or your tequila or whatnot.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I apologize. I had to go get some more water.
It's all good. It's all good.
Tail end of a cold, so
No, you're
getting
good.
a bit groggy.
You're
And
good.
then,
All right, well,
like a fucking idiot, I come in back in the room, and there's obviously a bit of a harsh space around the side here, and beers and blah blah blah. But I just fucking kicked the camera, so I apologize.
That's
Man,
all
you
good.
ain't family until you kick a camera.
Yeah, I mean, I dropped a mic the other week and let it like bang all over the floor. I mean, like, if it hasn't happened on this show and you don't know how to deal with it, then like we're not doing it right.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Amen to that.
Tell me how it's your first podcast without it's your first podcast. By
So
kicking
changing the
fucking camera.
subject and going on.
yeah, let's.
What do we got? We got 5 minutes?
You got to
No,
blame.
I just don't want to talk about the first podcast we had and what a clusterfuck it was. So let's keep
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
Garrett was like rage texting me the next day. He's like, it didn't go well, and
It actually went really well.
It fucking happens. But at the beginning, they were like, "Oh, we couldn't get this." It's like, dude, don't stress about it. Like, it happens, dude.
well,
It's technology.
that's the things I stress about. Like, I mean, like, I'm kind of OCD and a control freak when it comes to certain
Same.
things, and all the things that I couldn't control and that were out of my control, everything went wrong. Like legit, like everything went wrong. Like that's why that podcast is like the Easter egg. Like you can go find the audio if you want on certain platforms. I'm going to leave that Easter egg out there, but we don't have video to upload. Like the video feed ate shit and died. You know, like last week we thought everything was going great. And it did. It did. But then the metaverse decided they were doing whatever, and instead of it loading to our page where people could go back and watch it, it was gone.
Yep. They're canceling a lot right now.
We still had it, but and then these guys' show gets canceled, and I'm like, okay, well, did I just get canceled?
That was the Tuesday,
that wasn't just
one, right?
us, though, right?
The one that was
I'm
normally
talking about
directly
in this
after
building.
this.
Yeah. Did that happen to other people? That wasn't just us.
Yeah, it was us. There was like a nationwide, and like if you went back to our main page, like even on the admin side, like you could see like Facebook was saying like, hey, we're aware of these problems. We're going to try and fix it. But then, we had other podcasts that used words like trash and got kicked off live. And, trash. Like,
yeah, but midterms are coming up.
My podcast has talked about way worse shit. Like,
yeah, well,
and yet
midterms are in a month.
Yeah.
Come on now.
No, let's go.
We don't need to be naive.
All right. Well, I know you want to share some of this dusty blends over here, and I'm super excited to try that. But while we're passing that around, it's time for you two to answer the question that is like one of my favorite segments on here. And I'm kind of scared to see where Miggy's going to go with this.
Shit.
I'm even more scared where Brandon's going to go with this, because this is kind of like an open mic at the end of the night. Like, you guys have been with us on the show for a while. You know what's going on. So we like to do a segment called Give Us Your 2 Cents. Give Us Your 2 Cents can be literally about anything. Like, whatever is bothering you, whatever's on your mind, whatever you're happy about, sad about, something you ain't been able to say, you want to say, something that's bothering you. I mean, literally whatever. But
thank you.
Give us your 2 cents, and thank you, fellas, for joining me on this. I hope everybody else has enjoyed this, but let's start with Miggy. Give us your 2 cents, and it can be about whatever. Again,
shit,
holy shit, man.
Yeah, so for those that just see the Blandings bowl,
holy shit,
this is actually,
Biz, you gotta try this.
This is
I'm not even gonna slide it, but try this.
Yeah.
This is
that
from
dusty
1991.
effect. 1991, y'all. Miguel and Brandon were like 2 years old when this was like dumped.
Yeah, because we're both 89s, right? So
Yep. We're like a week apart.
I know, not even a week. It's like 4 days, right?
When is it? When's yours?
24th.
Yeah, I'm 29.
Are you guys like serious right now?
We're 5 days apart.
I was in the Army for 2 years already, and y'all was just not getting spat. Oh, Jesus.
Biz, we're fucking old, man.
Biz is like, oh shit, I am old. Dude, there's really nothing that bothers me.
It does have to be something that bothers you.
No, I'm just saying, like, I'm just trying to think of different things, but like, there's really nothing that bothers me. Like, the 2 cents that I have is like, don't take shit too seriously. If you want to go and grab something, go grab it. Take risks. Risks comes reward, and it also comes risk. I mean, let's face it. Like, my whole life, I'm only 33 years old. I've got 2 kids. I'm definitely not from Texas. Right, as you can
You're
tell.
not from Texas? I thought that was a South Texas accent.
It's Australia. It's a southern drawl.
I always make fun and like throw people a loop, and they're like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "Midland or Odessa."
See, that's so funny.
Will you pass the Dutchie upon the right hand side for me, please?
And that is so funny because like my father-in-law is Jordanian, right? So my father-in-law is Jordanian, and it's funny to me that like foreigners, when they come here, if they have a hard to pronounce name in the English language, they pick the most common English name that starts with the same letter. Like, it's absolutely hilarious to me. And the other funny part about this is almost all foreigners, and I don't know why this is, because it's like the most awkward city to claim you're from, but when they tell people they're from Texas and they ask them what city, they all say Waxahachie. And I just think it's hilarious. I have this shirt for my father-in-law. He's so hard to shop for because he just buys what he wants, to be honest, that I got him a I'm from Waxahachie shirt for Christmas this year that like I'm going to like present to him for Christmas. Like,
it's funny that you're mentioning like Waxahachie because when I first moved to the States 7 years ago, one of the guys that I worked with true, born and raised Texan, he was trying to throw me off and like, hey, pronounce these words, and he'd write them down. And Waxahachie was one of them. And I completely fucking butchered it.
Yeah.
And I just remember that as like, try and say this word. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just funny that you mentioned Waxahachie.
It's like the go-to for foreigners. Like they're going to go with like, I'm from Waxahachie. And everybody's like, yeah, okay, that mystical, magical land, Waxahachie.
But yeah, I mean, like I was saying, like it's don't take shit too seriously. Life is life. Life is supposed to be enjoyed, right?
I agree.
Take risks because risks come both reward. You know, I've been very fortunate enough to have the reward aspect, right? Young family, kids, moving to the US and creating something in my business, in my career and stuff like that, and giving my family opportunity. And then obviously
and surviving, not getting his ass kicked by his black belt wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a feat. Congrats on that.
I've survived that for 13 years so far. You know, there's
congrats.
There's a skill to that.
There is a skill to that. You know, there's been a few close. Yeah, Liam's right. There's been a few close calls. But
the brother-in-law chimes in with a few close calls.
He's like, I've seen it.
We'll keep that for Thanksgiving.
But yeah, I mean, just don't, again, take risks, enjoy life, right? Keep family and friends close, understanding the meaning of friends versus associates, all that kind of stuff. Like, that's important.
Never mistake the two.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of people
friends
do.
and family close.
But like,
We all
keep
do.
friends and family close.
And
it's a big mistake.
But with you saying that out, for any of my friends that work with me as well that are on here watching, we did lose a really great guy today. I just found out about our pool guy, Truman. Man, rest in peace. You were a great dude. You're going to be severely, severely missed, and condolences to his family. Just found that out today. But
I'm sorry about that.
all right, yeah.
Never nice.
B.
No, it's interesting. It's almost on that same point. I mean, none of us make it out alive, right?
Yeah, it's an infinite amount of time, so live the best life. But
it is something.
You cannot go all somber and serious with us on this. Like I did way too much of a.
Okay, so you want to get off of that? You want something lighter?
I want left field Brandon here. Like, give us your 2 cents. I mean, you already shut one podcast down. Let's go.
Oh shit.
Damn, did I
He's
just
like,
do that
how
to
many
myself?
words?
Well,
How many bad words in the algorithm can I say in the next 30 seconds?
Not get us canceled for.
Speaking of which, when this is over, can you teach me how to cuss in British? Y'all have the dopest cuss words ever. Like, it's way
You
better
gotta
than
say
our...
fuck 56 times in a paragraph.
Like I need to know what's the definition of bullets.
And then they say like
Bullets.
certain words
Yeah,
that
what
are
is that?
so
Cojones.
offensive and you don't even know.
Cojones.
No shit. Yeah, bulls.
See, we're gonna talk after this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna show up in the hood just speaking nothing but British cuss words and just fucking
Everyone will fucking look at me and go, what the fuck is this dude saying? Like,
and it's dope. Anyway, I'm sorry. I watched a lot of.
good.
I watched a lot of Guy Ritchie movies.
Bought me some time.
we'll give him elocution lessons in British profanity.
That's. Join us next week.
For one of our upcoming episodes, we're going to discuss British profanity and other slang terms that
All right, Brandon,
may or may
amaze
not
us.
get you kicked off Facebook.
All right,
And
so-
on that note,
On that note, it's an interesting concept that I was reminded when I actually took a day to stop and ride motocross last week. My first day, I decided in maybe years to just stop and ride. But there's an interesting parallel to life, right? When you ride motocross, you choose the line you want. You don't choose the line you don't want because that's where you're going to go, right? And when you come into a corner, you're faced with a lot of different lines.
Yep.
But you have to commit to that. And when you commit to that single line, the only way you can get out of it is just squeezing your legs, squeezing your throttle, and looking out the rut. If you do anything except for just roll on the throttle, you're in deep shit. That thing's going to hop out. You're taking a dirt nap. But I was reminded of that this week, which is just commit to the vision, roll on throttle, and then figure it out when you're out. Because then you could go, there's a faster line through there. Okay, well, the next lap, I'm going to take
go
another
faster.
line.
I think that's important as well.
It's
It's because the next one, you commit to this right now, but there's always going to be a pivot somewhere.
Always. And that line might set you up for something that you didn't expect. That might have set you up to hit a jump that you wouldn't have hit because you carry more speed. But it's just full commitment. Keep your eyes forward. Don't look at your wheel. And just squeeze legs, squeeze throttle. You'll be all right.
You know, that reminds me of a great quote. I don't remember who said it, but slow is steady and steady is fast.
Yeah.
You know,
Slow is
like,
fast.
you know,
Always.
you gotta do that. But I mean, just stay your course and just go with it.
Slow is fast.
I mean, sometimes that's what you have to do. I mean, like, I'll end it on that with my 2 cents is, you know, a lot of people have given advice, critique, and whatnot about doing a podcast. You know what? This is my fucking podcast. And you know what? I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm having a great time doing it. And this may turn into something totally different 3 months, 6 months from now. But you know what? I'm just doing it. And you know what? Some people don't ever get off the couch and just do it. And I want to encourage people to, whatever it is, whatever passion it is you have, or maybe you're looking for it, try new things and just go out and do something.
Yep.
Like, do it. Like, don't just sit and think about it. I mean, I wrote about this and like thought about this, and it didn't exactly come to me as a podcast, but like, you know, I went out, I got in some bourbon groups, met some cool people, led me to some cigar people, cigar groups. Then I started hanging out with cigar people, and then I ended up in the Atabay Lounge. And then I get invited on a podcast, and then I do a couple podcasts. And then I'm like, oh shit, this sounds like what I want to do. This sounds like a good avenue for me. And you know what? I'm just doing it. Like, who knows what comes to this? Like, maybe, hopefully y'all will continue to join us. And I did say I was going to talk about this, and I know we got to get off of here. I'm getting the signals and everything else, even though he has a mic, even though he's just mad dogging me over there. But
I ain't gonna do you like that, man. I just give you hand signals and hope
that's
you
why
like
we
catch
gave you
on.
a mic.
He's waiting for the elocution lessons. That's what it is. He wants to give it to you in British profanity language. That's what
He wanted
to
to find a way to say bollocks again. Like, he's really dying to say bollocks
Balls.
again. Yeah. So, earlier today, I made 2 posts. One on the Common Sense page on Facebook and one on my personal page. If y'all are watching this or listening, I've talked about this. Facebook's messed it up a couple times, so I want to try to honor this and do this. So, this bottle right here, this Nulu straight bourbon whiskey, it's a pick. It's a single barrel from Outer Heaven. Has a really cool tater sticker of Mario, so we've got that. We've got some very limited edition LFDs that were unreleased, event only.
For sure.
These are amazing. Like, this is out of my...
It even says it on the box.
Yeah, I mean, it says it on the box, y'all. Like,
It's got an LG
This
in
is
it.
out of my personal collection of cigars, and these are phenomenal. Like, there's unreleased cigars that you could only get if you were at this event or here. Like, I mean, look at Brandon. Like, he's telling y'all.
Yeah, I mean,
Then I've also curated and picked out a few other cigars that I'm just throwing out here. We've got Ken Hamlin's Arrival. I like this with coffee. It's a good coffee morning cigar. We've got the Corojo number 5 Gran Habano Maduro. This
really
is a cigar
Excellent.
that I
really good.
really personally like. I smoke a lot of these personally. This is one of my favorites of the Crux. This is the Epicure. This is one of the cigars we were just talking about, or one of the makers of cigars that they were talking about putting in a barrel. We've got this one here. I've also got, what do we got here? Ooh.
That's 2015 cigar of the year.
I'm not even going to try to say that after he just said that, because he just makes it sound so much
shit's good.
sexier. And then I've got an LFD anniversary in here too. I mean,
For those who like the Andalusian Bowl, that is the Andalusian Bowl just with more age on it.
so there you guys go.
Is it really?
All of these are available. We're going to give them away next week on the show live. I will do a randomizer. Go share the link, because it's a link to the YouTube page. We desperately need 100 subscribers so that other people that enjoy the show can easily find it. Right now, YouTube has made it very difficult to find our show. So go share that link. Comment on either one of them. If you comment on it and I see that you share it, I will enter you in the rando. And if you're local, I'll meet up with you. If you're not, I'll ship these to you. If you are the lucky winner, we'll randomize it. I'll run it.
One person's going to win all that?
One person's going to win all that just for sharing the YouTube
Come on, let's go
post.
now. Come on.
Yeah,
Let's go. That's
you guys
easy.
pick the number. What number are we going to use on the randomizer? Pick a number between 1 and 10.
7. Lucky,
7.
Lucky,
Lucky
7.
number 7.
Lucky
so
7.
I will randomize this 7 times next time live on the show. And whoever that is, you're going to win all this.
Like,
So-
comment, share, subscribe. Just do all the social shit.
Hashtag Common Sense the podcast. Thank you guys
takes
for
like
joining
15
us.
seconds, right? 15 seconds.
Literally. Thank you for joining us today. I want to thank my guests. You guys are some of my best friends, and I love having you on here. It's been a great show. Enjoyed
you.
sharing it with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
B, thank you.
Much love.
Miguel, Miggy.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go.
Enjoy it. Y'all have a great evening.